Herald and News, your news now.
The Herald and News.
Empowering the community.
Basin Views.
Herald and News, your news now. Klamath Falls, Oregon.
The Herald and News.
Podcast. Empowering the community and serving the Klamath Basin. This is the Herald and News Basin Views podcast. Greetings and welcome to Basin Views, a Herald and News podcast featuring interviews with local experts discussing issues important to the Klamath Basin. I'm Kurt Liedtke with the Herald and News. This week we are joined by Theresa Silver, interim executive director of the Ross Ragland Theater in Klamath Falls, here to discuss what's happening at the Ragland from The Wizard of Oz to Fall's recently announced event calendar. Theresa, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
You're welcome, Kurt.
Well, before we get into what's happening at the Ragland, I always like to start these things off getting to know our guests a little bit more. Could you tell us more about yourself?
I've been living in Klamath Falls since 2011, moved here because my husband's job brought us here. Worked at Geldwin for quite a while. Became involved in the theater at the request of somebody who I knew from the base who knew I was interested in the arts and liked theater. And so she asked me to be on the board, which I agreed to do. And I was on the board for 4 years, the last year of which I was the chair of the board.
So being on the board for several years, you had the opportunity to step in when the previous executive director, Mark McCrary, chose to take a job in Salem. I know that he had actually wanted to leave earlier, and there was a search to find a replacement and couldn't find one. So you've now stepped into that role. So how did that come about of you being picked to be the interim executive director?
That's a good question. I had a couple of board members come to me and say, would you consider doing this while we do our search? I think the nature of wanting to get somebody in there as quickly as possible, since he was going to be leaving, to be able to just guide things until we were able to get an executive director. They knew my love for the theater. They knew my last experience on the board. And I guess they figured I would be a good pick at the time.
Well, the Ross Ragland is a great historic theater. It carries on the tradition of Klamath Falls' great past, where this was a place before the I-5 corridor was created that a lot of the big-name artists came through, and there was a whole line in Main Street of grand movie theaters and performance halls. I love the fact that we have a arts epicenter like the Ross Ragland in a community like Klamath Falls that provides such a wide variety of experiences. What do you like about the Ross Ragland Theater?
Oh my gosh, it really is incredible. When I moved here, one of the things that really struck me was that we had this availability of cultural events. I was very excited about it. I had a friend invite me to come to one of the community productions the summer that we got here. And I saw it, and I was so impressed, and I was so excited to know that we had this gem here in little old Klamath Falls. You would not expect it. And I think it's something that helps with, we have people coming to visit, other people coming to stay, moving here, say, because of the base. We have people moving here from the hospital, from OIT. I think that makes it more attractive for them to be here.
I love the Ross Ragland because of the variety of events that come in. I thoroughly enjoyed the acrobats last year, and you had a magician and musical acts and community theater. It's great, the variety of content that comes in. And I know that's a conscious effort that Mark McCrary had, and that now falls on you for the time being. So what does the job entail in overseeing management of the Ross Ragland while trying at the same time to plan for this great variety to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible?
Well, it takes a lot of research. We also get a lot of producers and distributors coming to us and showing us what performers they have. So I actually have a little file on my desktop that I sit there and put everything in, and their possibilities for the 2019-2020 season. And we just get an incredible variety. And so then you sit and pick, what do you think would appeal here? And like you say, the circus is a great one. The magician is another one. feedback has been like, we'd like to have some comedy. So, we look at all those things. There's also the Arts Northwest Conference that's going to be in Eugene this year. So we go up to that, and we get to see a great variety of performances and acts that we can pick from. And so it's just a matter sometimes of winnowing it down to what we think will appeal to the audience here, and also a little bit what we can afford to bring here. Because like you say, we aren't on the I-5 corridor, so we have a smaller community, and so those are considerations too.
Can't always bring the superstars in, though there is a couple of recognizable names, and we will get into the fall schedule that was recently announced in late July. We'll go through the listing of all the artists, but first I want to talk about some of the changes that have been happening at the Ross Ragland. There is a new digital experience that has been implemented. And there's already been a couple of things. I know recently there was a live stream of a concert by the band Muse, and there's some other experiences that are coming up. So tell me all about this RDX system that was just installed.
It was kind of the brainchild of one of our board members, and she really took the wheel in making this happen and bringing it here. And so it's a high definition digital projector with a Dolby sound system. And we're able now to have theater grade, like the Pelican Theater grade films that we can present, and we can have all kinds of streaming events that we want to have. And it's almost like you're a movie theater in dealing with the distributors as far as what's released and the timing that you can have them and that type of dynamic. We're going to be able to bring musicals, regular films, independent films, National Geographic, just an incredible variety of performances, or rather films to the theater. Appeals to a different genre and crowd. So we'd like to, keep appealing to everybody.
With an historic theater, there's also a matter of keeping it up to par and maintenance and all that. And I know this summer there's been a little bit of an issue in regards to the air conditioning system. Can you tell me what happened and where things kind of stand in getting that fixed?
Oh, it's called poor timing on the part of the air conditioner, that's for sure. Beginning of summer, and it decided it was going to fail on us, although it's been working for over 30 years. So we had to get an engineer come in and take a look at it because it's a different type of system and it's not easily replaced. Well, we could replace the whole thing, but that was for an exorbitant amount. And so he said we could repair it and have it good for another 30 years. So he's in the process of, we've ordered the part, which is a compressor and a coil. That is supposedly takes almost 2 months to get here. So we're looking at the end of August before that arrives. They'll also have to do some adjustments to the space that's already on the roof where they're taking the old unit from, and then we'll have to get a crane, put that up on the roof. It's quite involved, and hopefully have that all done by the end of August. We have some wonderful businesses that are helping us out and giving us a break as far as the cost goes.
So how is that manageable right now? I know summer you don't have as many crowds as when the fall season starts, but there is currently the Wizard of Oz production, and there's been the youth play that happened a little while ago. How have crowds been managing temperatures that may be a little bit higher than what is typically comfortable for the Ragland?
Well, my facilities director has done a wonderful job. She's basically created a swamp cooler type of effect. She runs that in the evening, and so we get that, it gets cooled off inside there. And then we went out and bought some fans that we were able to strategically place to the side, and it's done a wonderful job of keeping it cool and the air moving. And so, this last weekend with the Wizard of Oz, there wasn't even a mention or any thought as to the temperature. So she's done a great job of managing that in the meantime.
Finding a way to make it work while at the same time being in the theater, I think, may be an improvement from being outside right now with mid-90s temperatures and the amount of smoke that there is.
Most definitely. It is that's what we think is too, to get away from the smoke, which is, I think, becoming very wearing for folks. Coming to the theater and having that coolness and calmness and clear air is one way of getting out of the heat.
Well, this weekend marks the final performances of the annual community theater production of Wizard of Oz. And this is a long-standing tradition with the Ross Ragland Theater. Last year they did Mary Poppins, and every year they try to take on a compelling story and kind of provide their own twist on maybe a story that people may know the background because it's either a famous novel or a famous film, but also kind of giving it its own twist. So what do you like about these community theater productions?
I think one of the things is it showcases the amount of talent that we have here in the Klamath Basin. It really is incredible. And then it, like you say, it allows a little bit of creativity and to put a twist on something that's been tried and true, but giving it a fresh face. I think our director has done a wonderful job of doing some fun things. I've gotten wonderful feedback from it. Maybe not everybody. Some people come expecting the same old thing that was in the movie, but you've seen that before, and so it's fun to see this new twist. I've gotten wonderful feedback. The cast and the crew and the stage hands have had a wonderful time doing this, and they've gotten along wonderfully doing it. They're like a family. So it's one of the best productions that we've had in recent years.
People don't realize necessarily what it takes to put on a production of this scale. The amount of rehearsal, the amount of preparation, the time it takes just to build the sets and make it all work coherently and all come together in a great presentation. Give us a sense of just the timelines that have gone into last weekend and this upcoming weekend for being able to put on the Wizard of Oz for this community.
The casting started months ago, and then the rehearsal has been going on since the beginning of the summer. The sets probably take several weeks to do, and it's interesting because you feel this crunch. You think you're starting far out, and you still feel this crunch as you get closer and closer to the date. They have put hours and hours every night. People work all day, then they come in the evening and they rehearse for several hours each night for weeks on end. The dedication, the creativity, it's amazing what goes into making it work.
So Wizard of Oz is going to have 3 more performances from the time that we post this show. Friday night at 7:30, Saturday night at 7:30, and a Sunday matinee at 2 p.m. Now, what people need to realize is that this is a steampunk version of Wizard of Oz. It takes on a different tact in terms of the setting. It's still, the familiar songs and familiar storylines based on the famous Wizard of Oz books as well as the film, but a steampunk aspect. What does that present that may be different from what people know from the movie?
Oh, well, the costuming is a little bit different in how they are. It goes more toward the, industrial type of look. Some of the set pieces kind of have more of an industrial type of look, so that go along with that theme that they've got going.
So tickets still available for this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for August, 10th through the 12th?
That's correct, yes.
So come out and see Wizard of Oz, because a lot of really great local talent has put in an extraordinary amount of time into making a really great performance. So we had talked a little bit about this whole digital experience thing, and I want to delve back into that just a little bit. The next upcoming event is going to be a Beatles event. Deconstructing the Beatles, a Sgt. Pepper's event. Tell me about what that is exactly.
Well, it's a closer look into, it delves a bit into the Beatles' lives, but it takes a look at all the ingenuity and creativity that went into producing the Sgt. Pepper's Hearts Club Band and that album that they did. It's really an interesting I've been able to watch some of it, and it's really an interesting film and very entertaining. You get to see, the different aspects of the Beatles and how they pulled it all together. And I think the producer of the film did a wonderful job of creating all the vignettes that go into it.
So that will be one of the newest RDX digital experience film presentations. There's some others that are going to be coming up, and I know that's also going to be utilized for things like the Klamath Independent Film Festival in mid-September. Some of the others that I saw on the schedule that you announced in late July: An American in Paris, Castle in the Sky, El Inca for All. Tell me about some of those presentations through the RDX experience that are going to be happening.
Well, The American in Paris is going to be the musical. It's about a World War II veteran that moves to Paris and meets a young Parisian shop girl who has somewhat of a secret, and he's so in love with her, but he soon realizes that maybe he's not the only one that's engaged with her, so to speak.
Now, there's an aspect of the Ross Ragland that has been expanded in recent years, and that is the second stage. In addition to the main theater, you now have a second performance area that holds events that may not be big enough for the main stage, but still has a core audience. And I know there's things that have become traditional there. The annual Rat Pack Christmas event always sells out way in advance. I know that you've got some dinner theater experiences, some karaoke, some piano bar. How has that second stage developed during the time that you've been with the board and now as the executive director? And tell me about some of the events that are happening.
Well, it went from maybe 1 or 2 events a year. We now have 5 this year, and we have a great response from it. It is a great little space. It's intimate. People get in there. They really enjoy being close up to the experience. Our first presentation is actually going to be a musical dinner theater, and it's going to be done by Ryan Adams, who is on hiatus, actually, back from New York City, back here in Klamath Falls. So I'm really excited about his production. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. And so that's a dinner theater, so you get to sit, and enjoy theater while you're eating in an intimate setting. The pack rats, actually, like you say.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I always get that messed up.
It's all right. I think you didn't want to encroach on their true name.
Right.
They, like you say, always bring a wonderful crowd. Last year we did 6 shows. This year we're not able to do as much because of where people are living at this time. So we're going to have one weekend with 3 shows. That sells out really quickly. So if people want their tickets, they can, purchase them soon. We have music and mixers this year. It's going to be, it's like a laid-back pub atmosphere that you can really enjoy. It's going to be piano bar this year. Another evening of music to enjoy will be when we have Mile Long Fuse come. And then we're trying something new this year that we still are coordinating, and it's going to be a karaoke sing-off. And there's a lot of karaoke that goes on this valley, and so the idea is to get the different competitors from different bars, have different people going, and so getting some of those people all together and having a little competition actually over a 2-night period. So one night have them sing, winnow it down to the top, say, 5 performers, and the next night having a competition there. And the audience gets to vote on what their opinion is. And
so whoever has a favorite bar that hosts karaoke, they can kind of compete at that bar for the right to represent the bar then in this best karaoke of Klamath style competition, right?
Yes, something to that effect, exactly.
As we talked about a little bit, in late July, you officially announced the calendar for the upcoming season at the Ross Ragland, which is always an exciting moment. Everyone is eager to see what kind of acts that you're going to bring in. I remember sitting down with Mark McCrary, and he was super excited about some of the groups that he had signed on to bring in this year. It all starts off with a really big name, one of the biggest names to come in recent years to the Ross Ragland. Last year, we had Leanne Rimes. This year, we have another country star in Josh Turner. Tell me all about Josh.
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's so exciting to be able to get him. I went to the bank yesterday and was giving the deposit, or getting a check for the deposit, and she said, "Oh, Josh Turner, I'm going to him." So see him. She's super excited about it, and that's the feedback from everybody. He's a Nashville recording artist, one of the country's most recognizable hit makers. Country always does well here, and he just has that rich, wonderful voice. I think he's going to definitely sell out.
So that show will be on September 9th. And in the season, I always look at it, not necessarily date by date, but by category, because Mark, and I'm sure you're working on this too now, was always good about trying to hit certain aspects. There are certainly traditional shows that are known are going to come every year. There were certain tribute acts I'd always bring in. There would be legacy acts, and always some surprising ones that people may not know the name, but you want to go check it out because there's really high quality performance in some of these. And we'll delve into some of those individually, but I want to start off with some of the traditional acts. One of the most popular ones that comes every year is the Eugene Ballet for the Nutcracker. There's the Red Tie Romp, the Klamath Chorale, Dancing with Your Stars. Tell me about some of these events that we bring in year after year at the Ross Ragland.
I remember one year we didn't have the Nutcracker. That was very disappointing. It's a staple. Everybody wants to go. We're having it twice in one day this year. We'll have a matinee and then we'll have an evening performance. And typically we sell out. So that, I remember as a child going to see the Nutcracker. I think it's kind of one of those cultural, iconic events that everybody loves to experience around the holidays. Red Tie Romp is our quintessential event every year. We have theme tables based on different musicals, so it's really fun for everybody to go and do that. It's a great fundraising event for us, but it's also a fun event for our participants. All kinds of games and prizes to be won. We have a live auction, we have a silent auction, and all of the proceeds and funds go to our children's programs that we run throughout the year here in the Klamath Basin with the schools, after-school programs, and camps.
There's also the classical music series. There's always Young Musicians of Excellence, Klamath Symphony, and some classical artists that come and perform. Can you tell me about some of the classical music that we're going to have this year at the Ross Ragland?
Ensemble 4.1, they are the world's only, quintet. So they're all wind instruments with one pianist. They're coming over from Europe, actually. So they're going to be really great. They're also going to do a residency in the schools with the children. So we're excited about that. We have Mark Valenti, a pianist. He has performed throughout the world, basically, and actually even performed for former First Lady Barbara Bush. We have the Young Musicians of Excellence that showcases high school musicians and all their talent. The best are chosen by professional judges from competitions. And last but certainly not least, we have our Klamath Chorale, again showcasing some of the Basin's best, 80 multi-talented individuals getting together under the direction of Robin Schwartz. And they have an incredible draw. We fill the auditorium when they play.
One thing that is always on the schedule each year as well are what are called tribute acts. I remember this past season we had performers that did the music of Heart, and I think there was a Beatles and a Beach Boys one, if I remember correctly. This year, you've got several tribute acts that are coming in. These are really great for people who love those iconic songs, but you can't necessarily get the original artists here. So next best thing is the people who oftentimes actually do the song better than the original artist sometimes. To be a tribute act, you really have to know the artist inside and out. And sometimes I've seen tribute acts that were actually better than the original artist when I've seen them. So we've got 3 really great ones coming this year, right?
Yes, we do. We have Texas Tribute, which does ZZ Top. We have Jukebox Heroes, which is a foreigner tribute band. And we have Grand Illusion coming, which is a regional band and extremely popular. They played at Hairfest, actually, recently up over in Eugene.
Fantastic. So, again, that's something that we're not necessarily on the I-5 corridor. We can't always bring in the originals, but you can still enjoy the songs that you grew up on and loved by bringing in these tribute acts, which is always fantastic. Now, another aspect is legacy artists. I remember this past season we had John Ford Coley. This year, bringing in another name that people will definitely remember and recall songs from yesteryear. Richard Marx is coming to Ross Ragland.
Yes, along with Josh Turner, Richard Marx is another one we're extremely excited to have. People have been asking, when is he going to be here? We're still working on determining that. But he has an incredible following, and people are surprised at the amount of hits that he had going back to the 80s. And he's going to be an extremely popular one.
When I had a chance to talk to Mark McCrary before he left, he couldn't tell me the entire schedule. We waited until end of July for the big unveiling, but there was one act that he couldn't stop talking about. And this is one that I hadn't heard of, but I'm looking forward to it just based on the enthusiasm that he brought across. He was so excited about a group called Joe Smith and the Spicy Pickles Jazz Band. Now, the Spicy Pickles Jazz Band is scheduled to come here on October 12th, performing at the Ross Ragland. What is it about this group that had Mark McCrary so excited?
Well, they're a vintage jazz band, and they're kind of, delving back into the swing music and dance, and they're a small group with a big band sound, and they're just really fun. And I think the audience will be able to really get into moving along with them as they play. They bring back the late 30s and the early 40s sound, but with a bit of a twist.
A couple other artists that I didn't know the names, but anytime that the Ross Ragland has brought in a performing artist, I've never been disappointed. And so I know that there's always cases where it may be an emerging artist or an artist that I may not know, but it's going to be quality because the Ross Ragland always manages to find really quality acts. Two of those names that I saw on the schedule that intrigued me were Heidi Berson and Luke McMaster. So can you tell the audience about these two performers and why they should come check them out?
He's performed for some big acts such as Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera and many more. He is a songwriter in his own right, and he's collaborated with many global superstars, Rihanna being one of them. I think he's going to be phenomenal here and very entertaining.
And then Heidi Berson?
Heidi Berson is an award-winning artist and songwriter that has a soulful sound. Her delivery is really captivating, and I think she's going to appeal to a broad base of people.
So there's a lot on the schedule. There's familiar legacy names like Richard Marx and stars like Josh Turner. There's tribute acts for people who love those classic songs of ZZ Top, Foreigner, and Styx. There's classic jazz. There's even a Rocky Horror Picture Show coming up, and there's a dance theater in the Nutcracker. There's a lot happening at the Ragland. I'm really excited about this schedule. Do you feel this kind of covers a little bit of everything for everybody?
I really do, yes. Like you say, Mark, his goal is always to appeal to those. So this was his last schedule that he put together, and once again, he's done a phenomenal job. I think there will be something for everybody to come to the Ross Ragland and see.
You also announced what will be happening next summer. Now, summer is usually the time at the Ragland. There's not a lot of concerts and events happening, but it is a time of preparation for the fall schedule, and it's also the time for community theater. There's always a youth camp that starts immediately after school gets out, and that culminates with a theater performance by kids. And there's always the community theater production, like what's happening this upcoming weekend with Wizard of Oz. Now, next year's youth theater, you announced, was going to be Madagascar Junior. I assume that's based on the popular animated film series.
That is exactly right, the Smash from DreamWorks.
There's going to be the community theater production next year that I am really intrigued about because you're going to be doing The Addams Family. Now, the iconic TV show and all of the spin-offs of that, the movies, there's some characters in the Addams Family that I am really curious to see how that's going to come out on stage. There's Cousin It, and there's a decapitated hand that is part of the family. I want to know how exactly that's going to be presented on stage, how you're going to have an active hand that is totally separate from an actor.
Well, we've got 12 months to figure out exactly how that's going to work. Dan and Faye Crenshaw are going to be our directors on that. And I'm imagining maybe something to the effect of lights and mirrors for the hand running across the stage. I'm excited to see exactly how that's going to turn out as well.
We have a very exciting schedule at the Ross Ragland that's going to start off actually in just a couple of weeks here with the Beatles RDX, and then, of course, Josh Turner, September 9th, and just a whole wealth of quality acts leading all the way into summer of next year. Theresa Silver is the interim executive director of the Ross Ragland Theater. Check out the calendar, and you can get tickets now, either at the box office or online. Theresa, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about all the exciting things happening at the Ross Ragland Theater.
Thank you, Kurt, for having me.